Right, good evening. Today is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, and the time is 5 p.m. I would like to call to order the District 191 Board of Education's Policy Review Committee. We are going to start with policies with changes, Policy 206, and that is public participation in school board meetings, complaints about persons at school board meetings, data privacy considerations, presented by Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent.
All right. Good evening, Policy Review Committee members, Alt, Marcel, and Connor. The first policy with changes is 206. We are updating the policy to match MSBA recommendations by removing address and updating statute 626.556. So if you look at section 4B, number 3, we're highlighting that statute 626.556, and then also removing address under 6A1. The last sentence, each speaker must provide their name. We're striking address, the name of the group represented, and the subject to be covered or the issue to be addressed. We are also, number 2 also, the sentence that has address, we're striking address also. And then lastly, I think that's it. We didn't use a cross-reference, no. I think those are the revisions. Let me just double check. Any questions?
All right, any questions or comments?
Anything from me?
So just striking address just to match MSBA?
Yes.
Yeah. So just to provide context on why we include address on the signing card and also in the policy, recognizing that sometimes at listening sessions, which is of course the only time when the community outside of hearings, where the community interacts directly with the school board, it gives us visibility into when there might be an outside entity coming in to speak with the board, and allows us to understand, of course, anyone within our school community may sign up to participate in a listening session if they're connected with the school community, staff member, a parent, whether they have a child in, whether they've open enrolled in or open enrolled out. But it's really more out of concern of, where is that outside entity coming from, and kind of understanding the address of that person for safety and security purposes. I would recommend keeping address.
For number 2?
For A1 and 2, there are some recommendations in MSBA that, many recommendations that MSBA makes that, of course, we and many other boards follow. There are other recommendations that boards tweak and kind of customize and make their own. This is one of those that 191 has customized and made our own for that reason. So that's just the context that I'm providing.
Okay.
I don't think we need to have it in there. If people feel better about coming forward, not having to give out their address, just their name, then I'm good with it.
I don't know. I think for me, I don't think having it in there is really, that important. I completely understand.
I get your point.
Making sure, just having some sort of visibility with outsiders and stuff, but I would trust anybody who is coming to us is, has a good intent to what they want to discuss with the board. So I would want it to keep it off. So, yeah.
Okay. So it moves to, oh, you want to do that at the end? Okay, sometimes we do. Well, okay. 204?
Yes, okay, so 206, I think, let's just put it on first reading.
Okay. All right.
And then we are going to move on to 204. We're going to stay with Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent, and this is the school board meeting minutes.
Policy 204, we're adding some reference changes from MSBA. There are no changes to the policy, so if you go to the reference section, there are several legal references that have been noted. Statute 123B.09, Boards of Independent School Districts, striking publishing proceedings, excuse me. Minnesota Statute 123B.14, officers of independent school districts added, but there's a strike through for record of meetings. Change the statute 331A.05, form of public notices. They changed it from notice regarding published summaries. 331A.08, computation of time, striking the publication of proceedings. Those are all.
All right, any questions or comments?
Not really. Just, yeah. I was just thinking, when I read 5, that the breakdown could have been just done in one sentence, but that's no big deal, so, no, it's fine.
Oh, the recordings?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
just, date of the meeting, and then, that it's a closed meeting strategy, all that could have just been in one paragraph, I think, but that's not a issue, so. Instead of a ABC, but that's it.
I don't have any comments. So 204 can go on consent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Battle.
You're welcome.
And then we're going to move on to policy 602, organization of the school calendar and school day, presented by Dr. Chris Belmont, Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening, directors. Thanks for having me. 602 is perhaps fresh in some of our minds because it was discussed at our most recent board meeting. And so per the direction of the board, there's some additional language for the Policy Review Committee to consider when it comes to Section 3A, number 2, the school calendar will establish at least 170 student contact days and the contractual work days for instructional staff. We're suggesting the addition of, with the exception of the 2024-25 and 2025-26 school years, when the school calendar may fall below 170 days in order to fulfill staff training requirements set forth by the Minnesota READ Act. Other than that, no other suggested changes for 602.
All right. Comments or questions?
Yep, going back to the conversation at the board meeting, based on board discussion, we were comfortable with reducing the calendar by 1 day for FY25 school year. And the language that you're presenting here is more vague and more broad than the board discussion itself. So, Chair, with your permission, I'd like to suggest alternate language. Because we had, as I said, we discussed just the one school year and then decided that if it needed to be changed for subsequent school years, that would happen in subsequent policy review sessions. And looking at policy language, my suggestion would be the 2024-2025 school year will establish at least 169 student contact days and the contractual work days for instructional staff to fulfill staff training requirements. And this, Dr. Belmont, is leaning on the end of your language, to fulfill staff training requirements set forth by the Minnesota READ Act. And I liked the addition of the why, as to why policy language would change, because I think that's important to have in policy, because it is an exception that the board is making. I wouldn't necessarily want to leave that off, because 170 is the established calendar, and it has been the established calendar length for some time. So that's for the committee to
1991.
consider.
Yeah.
Tony, any comments?
I tend to agree with what she said, makes sense to me.
Yes, so I agree with Director Olds' language in there too.
Did you capture it, Sarah?
Well, it's recorded.
Okay, please.
I captured that we would read, the school calendar will establish at least 170 student contact days and contractual work days for instructional staff, with the exception of the 2024 and 25 school year, which would establish 169 student contact days and contractual work days for instructional staff.
I think we would skip
Right
that.
to to fulfill
Just the
staff
student
training.
contact.
So it would
Again.
read, the school calendar will establish at least 170 student contact days and the contractual work days for instructional staff, period.
Okay.
And then, number 3, the 2024-2025 school year will establish at least 169 student contact days and the contractual work days for instructional staff to fulfill staff training and requirements set forth by the Minnesota READ Act. And I think we wouldn't have a conflict in language. I mean, if we wanted to, the exception, I mean, do we need a mention of an exception? I think if we just mention the school year, we should be fine.
I think that's good enough.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, so 602, let's put it on first reading. We're going to move on to policies with no changes, and we're going to stay with Dr. Chris Belmont, Assistant Superintendent. Policy 502, search of student lockers, desks, personnel positions, and students' person.
Yeah, policy 502 is up for regular review. No suggested changes to the committee at this time.
Right, any comments or questions?
There were no comments. I like that they explained exactly what, they were more detailed in explaining what everything is, so I'm good. I think it's good.
All right, 502 can go on consent.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
then, yeah. And we're moving on to policy 526, hazing prohibition. We're staying with Dr. Chris Belmont, Assistant Superintendent.
Yeah, thank you. Policy 526, hazing, is also referenced in statute and up for regular review with no policy suggestion changes at this time.
Any comments or questions?
I have none.
Just one minor, one edit. Page 526-3, under Roman numeral 4, reporting procedures. A, any person who believes he or she has been the target or victim. We've been changing gendered language to they.
Right, yeah. As soon as I saw
believe
that.
they have,
Right, I thought
You
that
knew
should
where I
be
was
they.
going.
Yep.
they have, okay, thank you for that.
They pop up every once in a while.
All right. And I don't have any comments. 526 can go on consent. All right. Next is policy 531, the Pledge of Allegiance, with Dr. Chris Belmont, Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Director Marsal. Policy 531, also included in statute, the Pledge of Allegiance. No suggested changes at this time. My understanding is that we are meeting this criteria on a daily basis at the elementary school and then at the high school as well, but we are constantly making sure that's happening. We're also updating our flags in the classroom this summer to make sure that students, should they choose to participate in the pledge, have ready access to the flag too. So.
Awesome. Any comments, questions?
You said they only do it in the elementary school and the high school, not the middle school?
I'm sorry, the middle schools, I believe they do it once a week as part of their advisory.
Is there a reason? I'm just curious why. They just don't have time, or?
Instead of daily, it says one or more
I can
times, at least
investigate
once a
that.
week. So,
Okay.
I can investigate more in the practice a little bit, but what I've heard when I have been present for it is someone gets on the announcement and introduces and kind of helps prompt the pledge, and then it occurs in the classroom with their teacher. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't have any comments. 531 can go on consent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
and I have the last two.
Yes. Next, we're moving on to policy 203.5, school board meeting agenda, presented by Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent.
For 203.5, it's the review rotation. I do not have any recommended changes.
All right, any questions or comments on this one? No. All right. 203.5 can go on consent. And then we're going to move on to the next policy, 205, open meeting and closed meetings, presented by Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent.
Yes, this is up for rotation review. I do not have any recommended changes.
All right, any comments or questions? I don't have any. All right, 205 can go on consent. All right, and I think that's it. Thank you, Dr. Battle, and thank you, Dr. Belmont. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.